Hey everybody, this is Wendy Ponomarenko. I'm the art teacher and librarian at Temple Emanu-El, and as part of the ongoing library project, I've been recording myself reading a book a night for our Temple families because the public libraries are closed and you guys don't have access to our library. So I'm trying to bring our Temple resources to you guys. And tonight's book is from the biography section. This is You Never Heard of Sandy Koufax? Not bad. This one's kind of cool. He's a lefty pitcher who used to pitch for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So hope you enjoy. This is You Never Heard of Sandy Koufax? By Jonah Winter and Andre Carrillo. It's got a cool cover to it. You gotta be kidding. You never heard of Sandy Koufax? He was only the greatest lefty who ever pitched in the game of baseball. Here's a bunch of his stats down here. Well, for 6 years he was anyway. From 1961 to 66, almost no one could hit the guy. The mighty Mick Mantle, one of the greatest power hitters of all time, whiff! After the Mick struck out one day, he turned to the catcher and said, "What the heck was that?" The walloping Willie Stargell, who slammed 475 homers, whiff! Hitting a Koufax fastball, Willie said, was like trying to drink coffee with a fork. Even Willie Mays, maybe the greatest all-around player in the history of all the majors, whiff! For 6 years, Koufax stood on the pitcher's mound like a prince, and when you looked at that serious mug of his, you can tell he was gonna beat you. Back when Koufax was a kid growing up Jewish in Brooklyn, no one would have guessed what he was about to become. He was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer. Problem was, Sandy was a whiz at every sport he played. The first time he made the newspapers, it was on account of basketball. In a game between his high school team and the New York Knicks, the big guys actually had to knock him down to stop him from scoring. But even though Sandy didn't care much about baseball back then, or so they say, there were rumors that this Jewish kid named Sandy Koufax could throw as hard as a pro. And it didn't take long for the Major League scouts to start sniffing around Diker Field, where Sandy was pitching to his pals in the Sandlot games. One day, one of our scouts, Al Campness, invites Sandy to Ebbets Field, home of our team, the Brooklyn Dodgers, so's he can see the hot shot pitch. After batting just one time against him, Campanis has seen enough. He says to Sandy, "Kid, how'd you like to play for us? Don't think too hard." Quick as you can say Jackie Robinson, this 19-year-old squirt was wearing Dodgers blue and earning more dough than some of us old-timers. And turns out Sandy earned most of it just warming the bench. See, he was new, a rookie, and rookies are known to lose a lot. It was 1955 and the Dodgers had a shot to win the pennant. The kid was too big a risk. And most every time our manager, Alston, did let Sandy pitch, the rookie was unpredictable, all over the map. He could throw strikes, but mostly he was nowhere near the strike zone. We could tell he was throwing too hard, and when you overthrow, you lose control. And when you lose control, you walk guys. And to make matters worse, Sandy kept to himself. He never said nothing to nobody. He never even cursed or argued with umps. And let me tell you, that ain't the best way to make friends on a ball club. So, back before Sandy Koufax became the Sandy Koufax, some of the guys didn't even like him. Not to mention, he was one of the only Jews in baseball in those days. Some of the guys said some pretty lousy things behind his back, things I can't repeat. If Sandy ever heard him, he never let on. But maybe that's one reason he threw too hard, to prove he was better than every one of them so-and-sos. Then, in '57, to make a long story longer, the Dodgers moved to L.A. Yeah, that's right. Some genius decided to move us to California. Can you believe that? We've been the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers. What were we dodging now? Palm trees? Meanwhile, the other teams, they were busy dodging Sandy's pitches. In '58, he threw more wild pitches than any other guy in baseball. And after Cubs hurler Sam Jones, he walked the most batters in the National League. If you ask me, Sandy was never going to get any better unless he got more practice. He knew it too. In 1960, he goes up to the general manager, Buzzy Bavazzi, and says, "Buzzy, trade me or let me pitch." Could have been the most he'd said in 5 years. So Buzzy listens. You know why? He puts Sandy in the regular starting rotation that includes Don Drysdale. Drysdale was this big, hard-throwing California boy. He was an ace, and we all thought he might show Sandy how to relax. But it made no difference. Koufax ended the season with 13 losses and only 8 wins. Now you know what Sandy does? He throws his uniform in the trash. The pants, the blue socks, the number 32 jersey, he says nothing to nobody, just leaves. Quitsville. We figured he was tired of losing, but the thing is Sandy never struck us as a quitter. The day he left, a bunch of the guys placed bets on whether he'd be back next season. Those of us who bet he'd be back, well, we made a few bucks. Come spring training, who do you think shows up with a sheepish grin on his face? That's right, Kawano, the equipment manager, hands Sandy his uniform, which he'd yanked from the trash, and says, "Here, I thought you might be needing this." If this was a fairy tale, Sandy would have magically been great now. But this wasn't no fairy tale, and before spring training was even over, he was pitching nothing but wild stuff. Again. Then, in this one preseason game against the Twins, he walks 3 guys in a row and loads the bases. Norm Sherry, the catcher, comes out of the mound. You can guess exactly what he's telling Sandy. "Kid, just put it over the plate. Let him hit it. We got 9 guys on this team who can field." Of course, Sandy's heard this 100 times. From Alston, from Drysdale, from other catchers, and he's always nodded. But this time, he's looking like he's really heard it. Something's different. Maybe he's standing up a little straighter. Maybe he's turned into a statue for a couple of minutes. The bases are loaded, but Koufax don't seem to be the least bit nervous. He don't look worried. He don't even look like Koufax. He goes into his windup, leans way back, keeping his eye on Sherry's mitt, and fires a rocket right over the plate. Strike! I could swear it's the fastest pitch Sandy Koufax has ever thrown. And then he strikes out the next 2 batters. Bim, bam, boom! Down in the dugout, Alston turns to me and says, "Did you see what I just seen? Who is that guy out there?" Well, I was wondering the same thing. For the rest of the day, Sandy was an ace pitcher. He struck out 8 guys and threw a no-hitter, and the Dodgers won the game. And it didn't stop there. From then on, Koufax was a strikeout machine. At the end of '61, Sandy had broke the National League record with 269 strikeouts. The rest, as they say, is history. For 6 golden years, game after game, Koufax goes to the mound and strikes out guy after guy. Game after game, he goes out and throws so hard that his hat falls off. And game after game, he throws so hard his elbow swells the size of a grapefruit. It's so sore he's got to stick it in a bucket of ice water when he's done pitching. Game after game, he's got to take so many painkillers he can hardly stand up. But Koufax does keep standing, and he keeps throwing strikes. How do you go from being nobody special to being the Sandy Koufax? What happened on the pitching mound that cold March day? No one really knows. With Sandy, nothing ever added up. Just when you thought you were starting to understand him, he'd haul off and throw you a curve, like this one. It's the first game of the 1965 World Series, which falls on a Jewish high holy day, and it's Sandy's turn to pitch. But Sandy, he's nowhere near the ballpark. Why? Because if you're Jewish, you ain't supposed to work on a high holy day. Sandy sits out the game to show he's proud to be Jewish and to set a good example. Just when it seems like pitching is all he cares about, Koufax proves everybody wrong and becomes an even bigger hero to American Jews. And just when he's at the peak of his game, the guy retires. You should have seen it when he made the announcement. Room full of reporters, mouths fell open. It made no sense. But if you thought about it, it made perfect sense. Sandy had a choice. He could retire, or he could lose the use of his left arm. And he didn't want to lose that arm. Yes, sir, folks are still scratching their heads over Sandy. For 6 years, he put us all in a trance. Teammates, batters, fans. In those split seconds when he arched his back and stretched his legs across the mound, his arm about to whip the ball into another world, he was like the Greek god of baseball. Who was Sandy Koufax? Sandy Koufax was a guy who finally relaxed enough to let his body do the one thing it was put on this earth to do. And what a thing of beauty that was. The end. This book has a lot of little stats, little rectangles, little offside things. So if you were ever to check it out, of course I wasn't going to stop the story and just read the stats to you, but they're actually quite impressive. They let you know like what kind of pitching was normal to see from the other teams, how Sandy Koufax was doing that year, like stuff like that. It's really cool stats to see. It really adds to the story. It gives you the numbers to back up the energetic fandom that you can hear in the writing of the author here. But there's also a couple of little asides that talk about Jackie Robinson and Satchel Paige, who were two African American players in baseball at the time. And I didn't stop to read those because they would have caused me to have to stop the story and to do this other thing. So I figured I'd just do these little blips at the end here. So Jackie Robinson was the first African American to break the color barrier in Major League Baseball. He was also a teammate of Sandy's on the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he was a favorite of many Brooklyn fans. His aggressive base stealing and his hitting created this excitement that was matched only by the grace with which he responded to like racist comments and the actions of some of the fans and the other players. In the other little aside it has here is about Satchel Paige, who was before the 1960s. He was earlier in baseball. So Satchel Paige was the great Negro Leagues pitcher. So before African Americans were allowed to even be in the same league with other races, they had their own league, the Negro League. And Satchel Paige was this great pitcher in the Negro Leagues. And he would sometimes load the bases on purpose, intentionally, and then he would call out all of his teammates except for the catcher around the pitcher's mound and have them all sit down. And he would go on to strike out the next three batters and end the inning. This would drive everybody nuts. He was just that just that sure of himself, and it was just such a cool move that the audience just loved, so he would do it a lot. Anyways, so yeah, Sandy Koufax, it's a good book to check out, even though I've already read it to you. Check it out for the stats. You get to get some of the emotion, maybe even go find some other resources about Sandy Koufax. He was a wonderful Jewish baseball player. And yeah, I don't even like baseball, or at least watch baseball, and from the excitement of the author in this book, like I want to go watch this guy. So yeah, there you go. This can be found in the biography section of our Juvenile stacks. Enjoy.